It would be great to have someone who could do our work for us, right? Someone to prevent us from making mistakes. Someone to assist with our routine professionally and allow us to devote our time to communicating with our closest people. If only we could get results without wasting our time for nothing. Unfortunately, it's impossible in real life. But wait, Light Forex Social Trading. Spend your time doing what really matters to you.
Guys, good morning again. 8 a.m. CET. Piotr here, meaning that we are going to cover live pre-London Open here only on Light Forex Global YouTube channel. We met some time ago, 1.5 hours ago. We were covering the RBA rate decision. No change. Part of the statement was available. Bulls on the Aussie trying to recover. Overall risk on trying to recover after huge sell-off we've seen yesterday. We are going to talk about this this morning here, pre-London Open, where we are going to prepare ourselves for the European session. But as usual, risk warning first, guys. Please bear in mind trading effects on margin trading. Crypto on margin carries a high level of risk, may not be suitable for investors. You can sustain a loss of some or all initial investment, so please do not invest the money that you cannot afford to lose. Seek education, gain experience before risking real money. However, past performance doesn't guarantee future results. Okay, so let's start with indices. Yeah, quite opposite than what we do usually. And let's have a look where we are from Nasdaq perspective, and then we will switch to DAX as well. So here from the Nasdaq perspective, ugly day yesterday, right? The thing is that yesterday there was around 7,580. There was a last point of the defense, in my opinion. What I'm talking about is the zone over here. So right now the zone over here, right? And especially the low. And we broke through another demand, as you can see, which is retested right now, right? And huge sell-off, which brought us towards the latest manipulation point. And you shouldn't be surprised that we are bouncing right now. Okay, so what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to wait and see what we are going to do during the cash market hours in US. So after the New York Open, how we are going to react on the retest of 7,500, 7,520. Okay, and in case of the breaking higher, that's what was supposed to work yesterday as demand. That's where I see supply right now, the main one. Also, we are not going to discover America, that it's like 50, the higher levels, right, towards 7,600, 7,670. That's something like 50% of the last move to the downside. Okay, so especially closing the gap between today and the Friday low, that might be the case, and it could be the good selling opportunity. The next one might be a little bit higher towards 7,750, and the last one, which already been tested towards the end of previous month, levels around 7,825. So because of where we are, because of this latest weakness, we see the bounce here on Nasdaq. First sellers probably around 7,500, 7,520, but it's too obvious in my opinion, right? Because of what we have to the left side earlier, what we've seen here. So we might see spike higher towards 7,600, right? So that's how I see the things on Nasdaq. Let's have a look. European indices. Let's check what is going on DAX. DAX been hurt also by yesterday by higher euro dollar, but trying to recover right now. And let's have a look what we have and why we are recovering where we recovering, right? So there is a, if you remember, in June we held 3 educational webinars. We were talking about some swing trading as well as unfinishing business or retest of the latest swing high or low. And that's what happened here during the Asian hours. We simply retest demand zone based on the swing low, especially when we have this, when we see this move to the upside, right? So not surprised here. Now we are retesting the previous low right now, right here, and that might work as a supply, but similar to what we discussed with Nasdaq, I want to see a little bit higher level, and in that case I would like to see market reaction around the Friday low. Based on my charts, levels are close to 11,850 on the DAX side. So that's how I see the things from the indices perspective, a little bit higher levels. So especially we have to try to imagine, right? So we have pre-US Open rally, right? We might see some kind of the pullback, but the top from this pre-market rally, that's the liquidity pool, and that's why I'm expecting a little bit higher levels. I might be totally wrong, but I think the market will try to take care about these highs, pre-market highs. Let's switch and check what is going on from the gold perspective, as we are inside. Finally, we are inside the big supply zone based on the weekly chart, and there is some kind of the reaction, as you can see with upper shadow here on the weekly. But let's switch lower. Let's switch to the daily chart. So finally we broke through the latest 2 failures. So right now, in case of the pullback, of course, Friday and Thursday high and as a possible demand, but I wouldn't be surprised to see test a little bit lower, and I'm talking here about the weekly open and yesterday low, right? So something around 1440, 1435 might work as a possible demand here on gold. Switching lower in that case, and of course what we have here from the bear's perspective, I'm sorry, I missed that one. From the bear's perspective is that if you are a conservative bear, then you wanna see the daily close below 1460. Then you may try to take the advantage of of the possible swing high. Let's switch lower to the lower time frame, and as you can see, gap up, a little bit of 1 hour of consolidation, and sell off, right? And sell off, but still trying to hold 1460 here on gold. So as I mentioned, if you are a bear, conservative one, you are waiting for a daily close. If you are aggressive, you are following the Asian hours, and as long as we are below 1470 or below the swing high 1474. All right, that's where the bears may try to take over. In case of the bullish setup, I think that if you see here something which is in your minds showing head and shoulders, that might be the case. So in that case, I think we might fulfill this head and shoulders this time, and the levels related to the daily chart, that's what we discussed, the previous two failures. All right, so around 1445, but as I mentioned, weekly open and yesterday low with the stop hunt, that's something I'm looking at and waiting for. Oil fighting around the very important levels. We discussed these levels, I don't know, a month ago maybe, trying to hold over the course of 4 days. We had some kind of the stop hunt Thursday, this morning during the Asian hours as well, and one can argue that some kind of the bottom of it might be some kind of the bottom of the channel, or it might be some kind of jumper, or whatever kind of the dynamic support you want to call it, right? For example, in case of squeeze to the upside, but there's still plenty of space inside. So from the bulls perspective, the bottom from the 20th of June, we are talking about the levels close to 54, today's low as well, and the range from 19th of June as a possible demand, right? The possible supply. Right now we can adjust the levels, and that's what we've seen last Friday on the retest rejection, right? So that's where we have the supply. So buying low, selling high right now as the name of the game on oil, in my opinion. So we can try to agree that since Friday we are trying to create some kind of the range, right? So to the upside, if we are about to double that range, we should see in 57.70. So we should see some nice supplies in case of the breakout of this range, right? In case of the breakdown of that range, we should revisit something closer to 50 levels. So for now, trying to trade inside that range, buying the low, selling the high. In case of either breakout or breakdown, in case of breakdown, we might revisit something around 50. In case of the breakout, before we are going to see lower levels, we might retest levels close to 57, 50, and I'm talking about that range here. So that's how I see the things from the oil perspective. So it's time to switch to the FX. Let's start with Aussie dollar post RBA, and in that case we are fighting around the supply we discussed this morning when we were covering RBA live. That's the manipulation point, that's the levels where we seen the weakness last time. So also that's the levels related to the weekly open. So for now, as long as we are below, bears are dominating the market, right? In case of the break to the upside, right, the things might get interesting towards 68.50, 68.75. Towards this supply, okay? Especially that there is a early signs of the bullish activity, right? Of course, in my opinion, it's too early because of where we are from the horizontal perspective. So again, weekly open, huge supply based on what we've seen yesterday at the very beginning of the week, right? So as long as we are below, still lower levels possible. What we may want to see is eventually move a little bit higher through some stops, retest of the weekly open, but as a pullback, and then trying to continue higher towards next level of possible supply, especially that is related to the bounce we've seen on the last day of July, right? Attempt to bounce and then break to the downside. So as of now, I wouldn't be a buyer here. The sellers are trying to take over, very close to January sell-off. So overall, the price action around this level, especially the daily close, might be the key here. On the other hand, we are post RBA, but ahead of the RBNZ, where the market expectations are that we are going to see the cut. Overall, that's widely expected, but we have to take into the consideration latest Kiwi data. I'm talking about this morning job market, which was very, very strong, that caused this spike to the downside on Aussie Kiwi. Anyway, from that perspective, when we are talking about the Aussie Kiwi, we are talking about this stop count to the downside and huge monster recovery when we are talking about that cross, right? So for now, of course, it's all about where we are going to close the day, but there are some signs of profit taking here, and even if we are going to adapt into this falling channel, we hit the stops to the downside, so it's maybe time to hit some stops to the upside. In that case, I'm not gonna be surprised to see the prices rising as high as 105. So depends on if you are a conservative, you wanna see this type of the daily close, then retest of the bottom of the channel and trying to attempt the longs around 103.50, 103.25, or from the intraday perspective, because of where we are still trying to hold this manipulation level, right? Post Kiwi job market data. So as long as we are above these levels, there are the chances that we are going to see higher levels. We are right now fighting with the intraday supply we discussed this morning, all right? So a little bit deeper pullback here, still, jeez, I bought my ticket for train. Anyway, also here from the intraday perspective, a little bit deeper pullback below or towards 103.50. Again, that's the solution, watching for this lower shadow. So I wouldn't be in rush to buy at the top of this manipulation point. I would rather see what is going to happen a little bit lower when we are talking about the Aussie Kiwi. Okay, so it's time to switch to majors. Euro dollar, very interesting what is going on here, especially when we are taking into the consideration where we are from the higher time frame. We're discussing these things few times. We are talking about this latest weakness from the higher time frame perspective. We are talking about this base ahead of the breakout. So that's the big possible demand base from the weekly chart. And what happened? It was the previous week attempt to break lower, right? We broke through a psychological 111 towards 110, but the end of the week we get back. I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. Just give me a second. All right, so from the weekly, it's gonna be better visible. So we were able to get back and have the close above previous week low. One of the reasons we're trying to create this swing low, and during the Tokyo hours we've seen some higher levels. Now I see here right now where we are, I see the possibilities for both sides, either buyers and sellers. So let's start with the buyers. That's the latest manipulation point right now. So in between 1160 and 1130, I see the possibility to we are going to have some kind of the demand. So let's switch lower to the hourly chart and let's have a look what we have from this lower time frame perspective, where we can try to join the party. And as you can see, inside this big white 30 pips range on euro dollar from the daily chart, we have our manipulation point on the hourly chart towards the bottom of that manipulation from the daily. So in that case, lower levels towards 1140, 1130, that's where I'm going to look for the buying opportunity. And I would say that's the most important level, because we don't want to get back below that zone in case of the activation of this supply. So very interesting, very important where we are and what's going to happen next from that level. Going back to daily, we also have, because of this attempt to break lower last week through this triple bottom we've seen, as well as post ECB low and stuff like this, etc., etc. So right now here down towards 1110-11 level, in case of the move even lower, we have possibility to see over under. So the next zone of possible demand is around 1110-11. Yeah, 11. Sorry. And the last possible demand is based on what we've seen last Wednesday and Thursday, where we are trying to create the swing, but it's not the classical one. So if you remember the educational webinars from June, there is a possibility we are about to finish the business. In that case, pullback towards 1050 and a little bit lower. That's the third possible scenario for buyers. So as I mentioned, there are both for buyers and sellers. So let's switch to the sellers right now here on euro dollar. And what we have, especially interesting thing is what happened during the Asian hours, right? This spike higher. So if you remember, for quite some time we were talking about medium term from the bulls perspective, that as long as we are below 1215, 1250, the bears are dominating this market. What happened over the Asian hours was the stop hunt towards as high as 1250 with the huge rejection, right? So overall, right now, if you are a conservative bear, so you want to be patient, you want to see where we are going to get the daily close. In that case, very important for me is a range, actually bottom we've seen on the 18th as well as on 19th of July, when we had this some called tweezer bottom, right? So that the range over the course of these 2 days here, right, that's the key. So we hit 50% of that range, right, with the huge rejection during the Asian hours. So from the bear's perspective, if you are a conservative bear, you want to see the close below that zone, as well as below yesterday high, even better below yesterday close. In that case, the range we've seen yesterday towards end of the day might be the supply tomorrow. But that's if you are a conservative, you have to be patient, you have to wait. If you are more aggressive and intraday trader, then you are trying to check what happened over the course of the Tokyo hours. So we had this demand created towards end of the New York session, and from here we saw, so we had this Riley base Riley formation, right? Then we hit those stops I've mentioned before towards 1250, right? And since we have this profit taking, what is important that 2 hours ago, from that perspective, we took out this demand by this lower shadow. So in that case, I'm trying to check where is the place we've seen the sell-off which was able to take out the possible demand. So in that case we are talking about this very narrow candle over here. So the first possible intraday supply is towards 12.25, 12.35. Then again we may try to retest this swing high and finish the business. So in that case we are talking about the 12.45, 12.50. But you know, I like, especially when we are switching from one session like the Tokyo session into, for example, European hours, where the London may want to try to take the advantage of the liquidity pool above the Tokyo high, and in case we are going to hit that swing high and try to hit more stops with rejection, that might be the case for me to try to join the party once we are get back below like this, right? That's how I see the things on euro dollar from the intraday perspective. And we just retest yesterday high, rejected, but still half an hour towards the London Open, so no rush here, at least not now. Dollar yen. Very close to 2019 low, and most probably that's gonna be the target. Huge recovery over the Asian hours, but I would be careful. I would be careful as a seller, and would rather see retest of levels close to 107.30, 107.50, something like 50% of that whole move to the downside. All right. Of course, we are testing the broken swing low, and we see some kind of the rejection, but right now we are fighting around the weekly open. So for quite some time we were even higher for the week, right? We were positive. So I do expect some bullish activity around the weekly open, and again around the yesterday low. I would like to see a little bit bigger rally, especially that's possible based on what we discussed on indices, right? In that case 107.30, 107.50, maybe even a little bit higher. To the downside, in case of trying to figure it out where to try to catch this falling knife, I'm joking, try not to catch falling knife, wait for the consolidation. But anyway, of course, similar situation to what we have on Aussie. The thing with Aussie is that we already broke this 2019 low. Here on dollar yen we haven't yet, right? So I would wait for similar price action, right? Stop count below 2019 low with huge rejection and short covering, right? So I would be a little bit more patient here, okay? Wait for a lower low towards 2019 low, and then maybe after some kind of the consolidation on a smaller time frame to try to jump in. So we know we have to be patient, both buyers and sellers. Let's switch lower. So that's Friday price action. Ideally hit our supply. If you remember, there was an intraday price action to the upside. I missed this 50 pips move to the upside by 8 pips, right? We were waiting with the limit order to buy. Then I mentioned that I'm not longer interested, and since then we saw this huge sell-off. So right now, what bulls should try to avoid to activate this supply under the weekly open. So we should see some kind of the bullish activity in between here and maybe lower shadow towards 106.20 because of Riley base rally, right? So we wanna try to hold, when we are talking about the, for example, hourly candle, we wanna try to hold the close around weekly open or slightly above. Don't be manipulated because of the price action over the Asian hours. What I'm talking about is that it might be because of some comments in relation to China, in relation to US. By the way, China stopped purchasing agri products from US. US called China FX manipulator, especially because of latest dollar Chinese yuan moves. So overall, don't be manipulated, don't be fooled by the Asian hours, today's Asian hours. It just might be aggressive profit taking, and at some point we are about to continue the latest risk of sentiment. The thing is, what we have to understand here, that we have bigger volatility, meaning that the pullbacks or rallies as a bounces are gonna be more aggressive and bigger than what you already adopt, right? When there was the low volatility environment. So just be careful here, don't be trapped, and I would say think twice sometimes, right? So that's a bit of the hint here. Because of risk off usually has a higher volatility, bounces, profit takings have a bigger ranges, so be careful here, guys. That's it from me this morning. Here pre-London Open, we are about to meet again tomorrow in relation to FX. There are some nice developments when we are talking about the crypto market, so I will try. I can't promise today because of this earlier morning RBA coverage that I'm going to be able, but I will try to prepare short crypto stream later today. So please subscribe to Global Light Forex YouTube channel. Click ring the bell, and so you are gonna be informed if you are interested in the crypto related stuff, especially that the Bitcoin is testing very important levels, as well as Ethereum. So I think that a very short crypto stream makes sense later today. Guys, it was my pleasure as usual to be here with you. Don't be trapped during the day, and yeah, see you again around. Guys, thank you and goodbye.